give you all a bio of her, the speaker. So Sis Heng Teng Teng works in the field of leadership and human and cultural development for over 20 years with organizations in Asia, Europe, and North America. She has the privilege to coach corporate leaders from various Fortune 500 companies and government statutory boards to support them in their inner mental shifts to navigate business challenges and demands. A large part of her work involves holding conversations with corporate leaders on team cohesiveness, engagement, and dealing with uncomfortable conversations. Learning and practicing the Dharma have enabled her ways for her to see herself and others deeply. This can transform relationships at many different levels, an aspect she hopes to encourage more in organizations. So without further ado, let me hand over the mic to Sis Heng Teng, please. Thank you.
Thank you, sister. Right. So good morning. Yes. Thank you so much for taking the time to come in for a Saturday. You could be doing other things. Yeah. So I'm wondering how you're feeling right now after the meditation. It's great, right? And just one word that caught me, or one phrase that Ajahn Brahm said, whatever that you're thinking, just relax and just bring a bit of kindness into us, right? So that just made me feel a lot less nervous, I must say, because I'm speaking here, in this compound for the first time. So I've been also doing a couple of things at work. So it's workshops that I do, facilitation that I do, and I enjoy a lot in holding conversations with people to help them understand themselves and what they are trying to overcome. So we have many different types of conversation, pertaining to leadership development or managing challenging situations or, performance. Yeah, so that is the kind of work that I do. So at the workshop level and also at a one-to-one level. Right, so today the topic is creating, you can see, right? Creating understanding at the workplace. And, well, what I'm going to share is what I have always been practicing, I must say. Well, when I say practicing, it's not something that I have get it, right? But it's something that's always in the journey of becoming better, right? And I believe this can also be used in any relationship that we are in, right? It's not rocket science, which also means that what I'm sharing, I don't think this will be the first time you heard about it. I'm quite sure about it. You may have heard from other ajahns or other facilitator or trainers. So what I'm also hoping to do in today's sharing is to kind of harness a little bit of the collective wisdom in the room, right? So the approach, what I have kind of designed is to allow some conversations in the room and for you to share some of your experience in managing your own situation. Now, sharing is sometimes kind of scary for some of us because we have to talk to a stranger that maybe we have not spoken to. But I'd like to then invite us to also see that because you share, you actually help someone perhaps to think about something in a different way. Yeah, so see it more of you share not because you are wanting to just share about your experience, but someone may need it. Someone may want to hear about it, and the person who hear it may also have the opportunity to reflect, right? So then, that would make the sharing a little bit more meaningful, that you are also, seeing how, your experience can also help someone to think about his or her own experience, right? So that's how I'm going to kind of facilitate the session. Right. So I'm curious to kind of hear from all of you here that when you come for this session, there may be something that you're thinking about this topic, right? So I'm going to just invite you to maybe turn to the person next to you. If the person next to you is your friend or your spouse, then maybe turn to a different person. Give yourself an opportunity to talk to someone very different and learn from someone very different, right? So what are you bringing in today in this room that you want to explore? It could be a question that you have centering around the topic about, understanding. So something you have been thinking about, or could be a question, or a learning that you hope to get today, just one, learning that maybe you think, oh, yeah, maybe I want to learn about this. Or maybe a situation that you're trying to explore fresh thinking around that situation. Or something that you feel you would like to share with us. Right? So any of that falls into, or others as well, right? Just kind of checking in yourself into the session. What are you bringing into the room? Could be a question, could be a learning you're hoping, could be a context that you're trying to get some thinking around, or could be something that you like to share. All right? So can I just give you maybe about 2 minutes for you to turn to someone that you have not spoken to and just share what are you bringing into our room today. All right? So let's start. Just maybe turn to someone and smile. Yeah? Maybe you can just turn the back, yeah? Just a quick one. So is there anything that falls into these boxes?
Well, come to open mind
Okay.
to listen to you
Okay.
because I'm still working. So
Right. Still working, is that what you
yeah, I'm
say?
still working. A lot of things, like what you say, we handle in the office has got to do with what we learn.
Yeah.
This kind of sessions, especially when it comes to handling difficult people.
Yeah. Okay.
Yeah,
So it's a
we
bit
got
of
a very, very different perspective
Okay.
coming from a Buddhism point of view.
Okay.
It always helps.
Okay. Nice.
Yeah.
Thank you. So it's more how to apply to more difficult situations.
You can always bring yourself out of the picture and look at the whole thing. Correct?
Yes.
And not get drawn into certain,
it. The drama of that.
So we are always been trained to be mindful, to look at situations before jumping into it.
Good. Thanks. All right, good. I could see some of you have completed. Thank you so much. Thank you. So maybe what we could do is just share randomly or what shouts out, what you have been sharing. Like it could be a question, could be a situation, or could be learning that you're hoping. So I was just having a chat with this brother, and we were talking about sometimes in the workplace, really some of the difficult situation kind of make this very hard, that we have to kind of grapple with. So sometimes it's helpful to come for events like that and to just help us to remove ourselves from, sometimes I call the drama in our life, to be able to look at it in a more systemic way, sometimes a bit less triggered, so that we can actually have our resourcefulness to be able to deal with the situation. So that's one context that the brother has brought in. So I'm curious to hear what other maybe learning or questions that you're bringing into our session today. Anyone would like to share? You look like you are ready to share. Yeah, brother.
Okay, thanks. I would say I'm probably relatively new to the workplace, and so far I have been working with fabulous managers and also colleagues. I thought by coming this session, I would foresee in the future what kind of challenging situation I might be facing, and also if there's any better ways to cope with those challenging situations.
Thank you. Sounds like really wanting to future-proof. We always use this word, right? So that you can preempt yourself and how to get ready for that. Thank you. Any other different ones? Different ones? How about yourself? Do you have anything that you have in mind? His brother, his sister? Sorry. What do you have in mind in terms of what would be useful for you? Okay. Networking. So how do you do it in a way that is in the workplace? That's what you're saying? Yeah. Okay. Right, right, very good. Yeah, and that is what we sometimes need in the workplace. Yeah, that networking and the connection. Thank you. Other different, maybe this side?
Hi, I would want to learn like what kind of relationship you should have with your boss. Like, should you keep your cards close to you, or should you be like totally honest? And like, what's the balance? Yeah, because yeah.
Okay, the balance between managing our bosses. How do you let the person know? Yes. Okay. Well, I don't know, I will talk about that, but let's see, right? Later you see if that's not, answering your question, we can always kind of ask me again. Yeah, but I also hear a bit about sometimes how honest we can be with people, right? And how authentic we are at the workplace. Because sometimes we do think that it's important to wear a certain mask in a sense, to show out in a certain way, but that is really always helpful, right? We can always think about and talk about that. Thank you. Other different ones? Yes, thank you.
So just now we talk about, with this brother, talk about like in the workplace, sometimes it can be very stressful, like we need to get things done. And it needs a collaboration with other people, not just we alone can achieve that. And also we shared about communications, importance of communications, and understanding the team members and the people we're dealing with in the companies, because we can't use the same way of communication with everyone, because some may work better with some individual, but some will work, may get a different in a way, effect actually with the other people. So we have to understand people and communicate in an effective way as well.
And so your question is sometimes, how can we also be flexible in kind of tuning in our message differently to different groups of people? Yeah, and that's what Buddha did as well, where different groups of people, he said different things with the same Dhamma, but he actually said in a different way, so that it actually resonates with that audience. Yeah, good, thank you. Any other last one? Different ones? Okay, good. So kind of have a bit of context for me to know, so that I know what you are bringing. Of course, there may be more that, we don't have time to go in. But in any case, if you have questions, then just feel free to ask as I go through the session. All right? So, I'm just curious, because the topic is, understanding, right? So think about a time where you actually experience understanding in any relationship or any conversation. Right, so think about a time like that. Yeah, so just kind of recall, is there a time where you really experience understanding? Yes? Okay, good. Now, some of you have, some of you say, wow, that seems kind of quite long ago, right? Now, what then are some of your feelings when you have those moments, right? How would you describe the relationship? Right? And what energy was present in that in that conversation or in that relationship? And then what was the impact on you or on others or the work? Right? So these are some of the questions I'd like you to think about, reflect on, so that you actually know moments like that exist in my life, right? And what happened? Yeah? Anyone would just to share some of your experience? You don't have to share like the detailed context, but in terms of emotions, yeah, in terms of the relationship, the energy you experience and the impact on you. How many of you actually have moments like that before? Yeah? 1, 2, 3, good. Only 3, the rest? You don't feel understood. Okay, maybe I invite sister, you share. You don't have to share like in detail, but just kind of your feeling.
I think understanding can be like an unspoken things that is like, just an example, like when I was really busy with work, like last time always have like call even at night with different counterparts in different regions. So my husband is very supportive. So he's helping me to take care of the kids, make the kids go to sleep, go to bed, because he knows that I have work to do, and he understands that because this is part of my work. So that is an understanding, yeah.
Thank you. And when you kind of shared that, what was the energy that was present in that moment? If you describe it as an energy, what was the energy? That sense of being supported, right? Yes, yes. So it has the elements of sometimes gratitude or being supported. Good, thank you. And I have you, brother, you also raised up your hand. Would you like to share as well in terms of the, how you feel kind of being understood?
I don't have a
Okay.
situation.
You don't have a situation, but if you feel a little bit on those moments where you feel understood, how would you feel? Sorry? Seeing. Yes, yes, yes. Thank you, thank you. And so the understanding I'm trying to bring here is felt scent, right? So we felt something, and in that something there is an energy exchange, and then there is an impact on us, right? So it has a connection to our heart as well, right? These are moments where we feel understood, right? And how can we create some of these moments more into the workplace, right? So that's what we are after here. And you see that being understood is an outcome of many things, right? So like say, it could be having a lot of conversations with your spouse to help them understand that, what you have been going through, and then, they actually sees that and they kind of support you on that. Now, so we think about conditions, right? Using the way how we look at, what are the conditions that we can, start to think about in creating understanding? What would be some things that comes to your mind when we think about conditions to create understanding? Timing, okay. Open communication. Okay, say more about this open communication. What if you were to list down that one thing about open communication, what exists in the open communication? Sorry, you wait, then I come to her. Okay. Okay. Right, right. So in this open, there is a kind of an exchange of likes and dislikes, right? That's what I'm here, just one aspect, yeah? And thank you. And sister? The trust, okay? So you have the trust as well. Anything else? Sorry? No judgment, okay? The non-judgment. Okay, and then sometimes you're saying? Mutual respect. Okay, anything else that you feel is the condition for creating understanding? Like as a new hire, when you have moments like that, what was present in that relationship? Yeah, and that form parts of this, right? So receptive to new ideas. Okay, good. Any others that you kind of experience? Huh? Empathy. What's empathy? How would you define empathy? Understand? Okay, okay. So empathy is really... okay? So we define empathy as putting yourself in someone's shoe, right? You really understand the person's experience, yeah? So these are some of the conditions that we know will create understanding. So I like to see that these are outcome of something that we have done to be able to achieve this. So I'm going to break it down to, so what are some simple things we can do in the workplace so that we can achieve a bit more open communication with people, where we actually develop trust and then mutual respect, and we actually be able to step in to understand how people are experiencing the situation, all right? Now, I like to just frame it into very simple, just 3 seeds we can continue to cultivate as we bring these 3 seeds in any relationship that we are in, not just at the workplace. Because I always like to use seeds because seeds takes time to grow, right? Yeah, and seeds needs a lot of care. Seeds needs a lot of like fertilizer. So whether seeds can grow or not, a lot depends on the conditions that is present in the environment as well. So in the Buddhist teaching, we always see that we are the gardener, right? The gardener to be able to plant seeds as we get through our life, right? So being kind of intentional about what are the seeds that we are planting. So the first seeds that I feel that we can plant is the seeds of seeing, all right? What do I mean by that? When you hear this word, what comes to your mind? The seeds of seeing. Growing, is that what I'm saying? Seeing, what does that mean? Good or bad? Yeah, which is, how do you see things? Right, so you go back to, if you understand a bit of 𝐼𝒏𝒈, right? When we come to a conclusion about something, is what we pay attention on, all right? And using this concept of what we pay attention on, right, is to then ask ourselves on a daily basis, at work, we are talking about at work, yeah? Where and what do we usually put our attention on? So today is Sunday, right? So Friday, when you go to work, what do you put attention on? So, yeah, it's a Saturday, right? TGIF. Oh, okay. So actually our thoughts are, okay, tomorrow is not working, right? Maybe, yeah, a bit of free time that we have. Thank you for that honesty. Me too. Yeah, but what else? Your what? Task. Very good. So, okay, today what should I do? Okay, the to-do list. What else? Anything else that you pay attention? Who check email, like the first thing, after you have your coffee and whatever, you check your email, yeah. And when you check the email, how do you feel? Sian. We feel sian, we sometimes feel stressed, right? Like, many things to do. So email is one thing we pay attention on, on a daily basis. What else? Maybe meetings. Right? Okay, we're going to attend meetings, right? So just take note of every day when you go to the office, what do you pay attention? And that moment when you read the email, how do you feel? The emotion can stick with us throughout, right? So what we pay attention on is very important, right? And similarly, if we talk about understanding, is to be able to pay attention on what we pay attention on, because that gives us a lot of, I call it sense-making, right? That's going on in our mind. Now, so in what ways has learning the Dhamma influenced you in seeing people? Right? I'm curious, in what ways that has the Dhamma influenced you? Have you thought about that? So I think just now this brother said, just learning the Dhamma allow us to just take a step back, right? To just have a pause. And in that pause, maybe we can see the people differently or the situation differently. Any others that you feel, the Dhamma has kind of influenced you in how you see people? Yeah. And which part of the Dhamma kind of help you to have that impact? You don't know? So we talk maybe about compassion, yeah, about, non-judgment, yeah, respect. Maybe that also has helped us in how we see people. Right? Any others that you think Dhamma has helped us to be able to see people differently? Yeah. So the forgiveness, right? The forgiveness, right? So what Dhamma has helped me in how I see people is to understand, what they pay attention on and what I pay attention on creates a lot of meaning in their head. All right? And in order for me to be able to understand them, I need to be able to understand what I pay attention on. And also be aware of what they pay attention on. So that is a conversation for alignment. Because sometimes we think, how come the boss don't think like this? But then the boss will think, how come you don't think like me? So it's because what we pay attention is so different, right? Now, so I like to use an iceberg kind of a way to look at it, right? Something that is up on top is something that is easily pay attention on. Something that is hidden is something that we don't know, all right? Now, if you look at the iceberg here, what is something that we usually pay attention on could be the roles that we are in, the tasks that we are doing, the to-do list we have, or sometimes behavior that we see, my boss like that, my colleagues like that. And then we start to say they are like that, and then we have our stories, all right? Expectation, all right? So we pay attention to expectation, like this department haven't done this. So they didn't fulfill the customer expectation. So that is something that I need to talk to this person, all right? So we pay attention on that. Or sometimes problem to fixed. Deadlines, all right? Complaints, areas for improvements, or sometimes differences, like my boss is so different from me. You know, he's like that or I'm like that, the style is different, right? So when you look at all these words, right, if you just notice how it makes us feel, what would you say? Would it cause you to feel relaxed? Would it cause us to feel calm? No. So it has an impact on us because it just wants us to just move, push, right? And you just want to get it done, right? So it has an impact on the felt sense of our energy, right? And how it starts to bring us, you know, or rather start our day with the rush or focusing on the gaps, right? And this is not right or wrong, it's just, it is like that, right? Because just looking at the words itself just give me a lot of tension. And it's this tension that we actually sometimes pass around on a day-to-day, right? Now, I'm going to show you a different sets of words, and then you let me know how that sounds for you. Now, instead of paying attention on that, if you start to look at that, the different life stages of how people go through life, right? Maybe that's the cultural influences, how they experience the situation, or sometimes the stories that they may carry because of childhood, all right? Or some of the pain that they are experiencing right now in that moment when the complaint is there, right? When the customer complains, right? Or they needed something but it wasn't met. Or they put in a lot of efforts in something. Or they have a certain positive intention that wasn't quite well expressed in those moments, right? Or they may have certain fulfilling moments in their work but they have never talked about it. Or they could have certain aspiration that they want to meet but never got to meet. Kind of stay inside, all right? Or they are, you know, motivated by some other things, right? So the motivation. The qualities that they have and the strengths that they have, all right? So just looking at this group of words, yeah? How does that land for you if you kind of notice how it feels like for you in you? So that's just now was tense and rushed, right? This one is? Sorry? Take your time. Okay, nice. So it's a lot more like that. Yeah, if I use the image, I'm more like that. Okay, good. Other things? Yeah, more understanding, more connection, that you actually see them as a human, right? Anything else that comes out for you? Yeah. So, yeah, and this exists in every human being, right? Right? Exists in every human being. Every one of us has aspiration. Every one of us has strengths. Every one of us has pain. Every one of us has needs. So you see that the focus brings us into connecting them with as a human being. No longer at this, right? That the work, the differences, you know, the task, is the expectation, but being able to just slow down and say, connecting is, what is it that they are trying to tell me? Right? I'll give you a few examples. I have, I have the experience of working with someone who, this person reports to a boss who is a new boss, comes from a different country and a non-Chinese. So the first few meetings or interaction with this boss is very stressful for this person. And this person is a Singaporean, Singapore leader. She said every time when in meeting, this person would call me out, and be very direct with the feedback. Many times like that, and sometimes I feel I'm just not good enough, all right? And therefore, I feel it's very, very stressful working with this person. So, of course, this person asked me, so what should I do? Right? So in coaching, one of the things that we do is we don't give advice. We try to help the person to kind of reflect what's going on inside you, right? And as I asked a couple of questions, and then she realized that what then she was really, the pain she has is she doesn't feel that the boss understood her, because she was being asked a lot of things. She felt that she has done her best, but her boss didn't see it and don't understand. So after the conversation, the action item for her was to be able to go to her boss and talk through things. Like, just tell your boss, this is how you experience some of this meeting, and ask your boss, is that what, he is, what is it he's trying to do, right? What was his intention, right? So in a very respectful way, talk about how that experience has impacted you, all right? And initially, she was a bit scared. She's like, sure not, can talk. I said, sure, why not? Just try, and then we talk about what worse can happen, all right? And then I said, will you get sacked because of that? He said, no lah, of course not. And I said, okay lah, if you don't get sacked, then just try. And then she tried and she came back, she said, it works. I said, what works? It works. And then he said, I've misunderstood my boss. My boss was so shocked that I experienced that. And my boss said, oh really? My way of asking is too direct for you? He said, obviously, And then, what the boss did was amazing. The boss says, I tell you what, can you be my checker, right? That just give me feedback every 3 months. Let me know how I'm doing 3 months later. Because I want to change this. Because this is my first experience working in Singapore. And he comes from a culture that's so different, right? And then I asked the leader, what have you learned from this experience? He said, yeah, I've learned that, the culture that we come from definitely influence how we communicate with each other, right? And it actually influenced the setting a lot, the dynamics a lot, right? So that's one story, in terms of just understanding, sometimes people really don't have the intention to hurt us, right? But just the culture of speaking, the words that they use is just so direct. Yeah, and if we keep to ourselves, the person would not know. Right, so kind of share it with a mindset that help this person know how to work with you, right? Help this person know what's some more effective way of communicating with you, right? Rather than having to sometimes blame the person, or sometimes we put certain judgment on that person, all right? So that's one learning. Now, the other story I like to share is another leader was working, right? So sometimes we do 360 feedback, means we get them to collect feedback using a system from all different parts of the organization. So the boss, the peer, and the staff, all right? And what happened is the 360 feedback shows that this person has a very high controlling behavior as a leader, all right? And then we talk about that. And immediately, our mind is stop controlling. All right, that's our mind, right? So the feedback shows that you're controlling, so stop controlling. And this is where the stories comes in. So I have an opportunity, of course, to work with him. And then what Dan shared was very moving for me was he started to reflect on why that behavior shows up. Because when he was young, his parents passed away early, and he was the eldest in the family. The only way to survive and protect the family is to control. It's like a survival instinct. That if I don't control, if I don't protect, my siblings will suffer. So that has been ingrained in him that the way to do good is to control. That was, like a revolution for him. It's like, yeah, and then I know why I learned that behavior. And of course, then we say, okay, how has that behavior been effective for you right now in this context? Right? Can you kind of reframe it? Can you control it in a different way? Because now you may not have to protect your team because your team needs to grow. If you continue to protect in this way, they cannot grow. Yeah, so kind of reframe it to say, can you help them to be able to kind of empower them a bit? So kind of dial down your controlling and reframe it more from control to more empowering. All right, that how can you help them, and do not just always give them the fish, but be able to help them to fish. And that sits very well for him, because what he wants is to kind of help people grow. But in a way that was so ingrained in him, because he has been doing that since young. All right, now, so that story moved me a lot as well, because, you know, it actually holds us back to very quickly go into behavior. To say this person is a control freak. And then we stop, and then there's a full stop there, the control freak. But to be able to say, hey, that comes from somewhere. What is the story that the person carried to be able to kind of have this kind of behavior? Now, we don't know. And because we don't know, let's not go into this, right? Let's go into a little bit more non-judgmental to say what's going on, right? And that calls for a lot more conversations. That calls for us to really step in to understand what's going on in this person's, right? Now, so that's the way we see people, to go beyond just behavior, job, and complaints. Because that, if you use it as an energy, it just brings us up and kind of have a bit of that protective instinct, and a little bit of how our brain works. If you have a bit of that neuroscience, you know, our brain has two parts, at least, you know, two parts of that is where there is a prefrontal cortex, which is a thinking brain, right? This is a resourceful part of the brain. There is a little amygdala, you know, behind our brain that actually kind of regulate emotions. So when we feel threatened, our amygdala is being hijacked, and what we do is the instinct is to just protect, avoid, or run away, right? It's just like when you see a snake in front of you, what do, right? You run, you scream, right? This is how the brain works. So when you see something threatening to you, right, you will always do this. And when we do this, what happened to our brain is we lost the resourcefulness part of us. We actually start to react. We don't respond. We react because we need to protect, all right? We need to fight or flight, run away, right? So in order for us to kind of really not get into that situation is to be able to pause, to be able to kind of tap more into our resourceful part of our brain, because that's the most creative part of our brain, right? That's where we are creative, that's where we are innovative, right? So if we constantly are in this mode of running, right, you will see that actually we are not at our potential. We are not running the work at our best. Yeah, so if you notice that in your body, that you're always constantly stressed, tense, wanting to kind of fulfill certain things, take a step back and say, is this the best of me that I can show? How can I tap on more on the prefrontal cortex of my brain? So mindfulness help, you know, meditation help, journaling help, just taking a step back, all right? Now, with that, just a few key points about seeing, right? So what I'm going to try to say here is, we talk about see people, right, is to see at a deeper level, right, that kind of put our attention on things that maybe you may not have put attention on. Kind of rewire to say, hey, what is it about this person that I'm not seeing, all right? So I like this David Brooke, which is a New York columnist. Yeah, I like his book because he says this: attention is the currency of love. Yeah, and what it means is, what kind of attention are we giving people? And I like to say it's not about just time, it's the quality of attention. So when you are with this person, can you really fully be with this person? All right, your phone, you know, your planning of the next meeting, just put it aside, just be with this person. And Ajahn Brahm asked this question, which I just love it. She said, who is the most important person in your life? The person in front of you. Beautiful. I was like, wow, it's so profound. Like, yes, it's the person in front of you. And that is what I like to say as attention. Right, just giving people the attention. Be it, you know, your colleagues, yeah, be it maybe if you are leading a team, set aside that time for them, right? That you just don't talk about the problem, don't talk about deadline, but just talk about them, who they are, what motivates them, all right? And what are some fulfilling moments for them? Yeah, what is the strength in them that we may not have seen? What is the quality that they carry in their job? right? And these are things that will connect us with any human being, all right? So that's the first part, and seeing someone requires intentional focus. And that I experience it because sometimes I do have very difficult conversation with leaders where I kind of feel that it's difficult to break the ice. So one leader, my classic example was, I asked him this question. I said, actually, what is your aspiration? Because it was just the first session, right? I said, what is your aspiration? His response just put me, like, throw me off. He said, who are you? Why should I tell you? We're just talking for 15 minutes and you're asking me for my aspiration. I'm not going to tell you. I'm like, oh dear. Okay, I've never had that kind of answer, but that means I need to see him in a different way, all right? Because the safety wasn't there for him to share, right? So I step back. I use the same framework to say, okay, what do you enjoy? You know, you've been in a company for a long time. What do you enjoy in your work? Because there must be something that you enjoy in your work that kind of allow you to stay in a company for so long. And then he started to share this and that. And I begin to feel a bit more of his relaxation, with me. And then from there, we start kind of deepen the conversation. And then in the end, he said, you are one of the most, kind of very enjoyable and very, very good kind of a coach that I'm working with, so that I actually start to discover about myself. So it dawned onto him that he has a lot of fear. The fear of, because he's reaching his retirement, the fear of not knowing what to do, right? And that aspiration ties a little bit into that. Yeah, so I didn't know that. At least the first 15 minutes. But as you build the relationship, I started to know that. So what I'm trying to say is to be able to not just freak out with that tension that you're experiencing it, but to just pause that there must be something this person is experiencing me, and therefore, what is it that I have not sinned? All right, and that would be something that I use to kind of connect with myself. Now, we each carry many stories that influence how we show up, which also means that when we look at a certain behavior, we don't immediately come to a certain conclusion, right? To be able to take a step back to say, these are just one part of this person, right? And we as well, right? We show up in a certain way because of our stories, right? To be able to take a step back to say, they are stories that influence this person. And the lens we use to see ourselves largely influence the lens we see others, right? Agree? Yeah, and I try this a lot. If I'm not compassionate to myself, usually I'm not so compassionate to others. If I talk to myself in a very critical way, right? I critique myself, or I say, I should have done this, I should have done that, and then I blame myself, Very likely I will pass that to other people. Right, so one of the way I practice that I learned from Longpo Veradamo is, he said this, right? Sometimes we do a lot of reading, every time we want to practice, we read a lot, right? And one way he recommend for me is to say, take one or two words that you could use to contemplate, years. Yeah, so one of the words that he used, which resonate a lot with me is the word non-resistance. And I was in one of the talk, and then he shared that. And I was just really using that word to just contemplate about my relationship or moments where I was triggered, was non-resistant, right? So how does that play out? So it got a little to do with that sense of, if I don't resist myself, right? So if I feel, let's say, guilty, and I just notice that there's this guilt in me, that I'm not just resisting, I don't want to try not to feel guilty, right? I'm not judging it, but just noticing there's this guilt, or there's this incompetence in me, right? And just noticing, I'm not trying to resist it. I feel a lot better, and I feel a lot more acceptance, and my heart just opened up to myself. I'm able to bring that to others. I'm able to help people to accept their imperfections. I'm able to help people to kind of say that you're good enough, right? In this moment, you're just good enough, right? So that's how, how we practice on ourselves can also bring it to people around us, because the world really is stressful, right? The work is stressful, and how can we actually bring some of that into the workplace? All right, so that's the part about seeing, all right? How we see people, and how can we see it deeper, and how can we go a bit deeper in terms of not just at the top of the iceberg. Any questions so far? Okay, no. Now, then we have the next seat, which is what I call listening. Sounds simple, okay? Now, I'm curious to hear what could hold us back from listening. So we may have judgment, yeah, we may have our own desire, anything that could hold us back from listening. Sorry, when the person? Which our preferences lah. We like people to talk to us. Yeah, people who don't like to talk or whatever, right? We have our preferences, and that could hold us back from listening to people. Any others that could hold us back from listening to people? Yes, just not enough sleep. Yeah, not enough rest. This just itself will not be able to give people attention and not be able to listen. Now, we all have the capability and ability to listen deeply. I always feel that. We all have that. Now, so my question is, how consistent are we with that? So the practice is not to just listen. The practice is to be more consistent. Because we have our desire. We have our likes and dislikes. This person don't want to listen. Oh, my child. Oh, okay, can I listen to you? Right? So we picked. Right? Not that we have to now be, like a nobleman to, to have that compassion towards all others, right? But to be able to notice that how we listen to people, a lot got to do with our defilements as well, our craving as well, right? And once you know that, right, then how do I work with that is to be able to understand that what I then get may not be the truth, all right? Then I need to learn how to kind of challenge that truth that I'm perceiving, right? And that's how the skills of listening can really help us, right? So, and also to check in the, the intent of our listening. Why do you want to listen to people? Like in this case, why do you listen to me now? To learn, right? To get something, right? But is that the only way we listen to people? Are there other purposes of why you listen to people? Very good. Make connection. How do we listen in a way that we connect? All right, so that's another purpose. Any others? That how we listen, why we listen? Brother? Why do we listen?
So they can better understand others.
Yes, better understand others. All right. So bringing us to, the different purpose of listening, right? Listen to comprehend, like what some of you said. Sometimes we listen to analyze. This one not correct. Sounds familiar? Your boss says something, right? You say, oh, there he goes again. And then we start to analyze, we start to discern, all right? Or we listen to fix problem. Before the person can finish something, I tell you what, this is what you do. We listen to problem fix because the brain is just wired to just problem fix, especially if you have been brought up in, by education that there's just problem that we need to fix. Right? Some of us are quite good in analytical and ability, right? And then we just fix problem. But I'd like to say they are also listen to appreciate. Right? So I use a very simple example, like, if you have a little toddler coming to you, say, Mommy, I scored like 80 out of 100, telling you, right? And then the response from the mom is, why only 80? How many marks does your friend score? So what does the girl want? Listen to appreciate. If you could have listened to say, oh, okay, so well done, because the last time you only scored like maybe 70. This time I see that you put in effort and you have an 80. Yeah, I just want to let you say that continue the effort. All right, so just listen for that and kind of appreciate. And sometimes, we don't have to do a lot of things. Right? So we listen as a companion, right? So it's almost like someone just had a very, very bad day, and just kind of coming to you, and then we start to say, yeah, maybe you can do this, maybe you can do that, maybe you can do that. And the person feels like, okay, actually I know what to do. I just want you to listen. Sounds like familiar, right? Sometimes you also have that, right? When you go back home, then you kind of pour a lot of your troubles to your spouse. Then your spouse say, yeah, you always say about this, and then you don't do this. Then what for you say this? I'm like, sounds familiar? Yeah, it's like, actually, the person just wants you to listen. Yeah, can we just not do anything? So I put it more that relaxed awareness, just not leading, not directing, just be. And you'd be surprised that a lot of my coaching session, sometimes the leaders just so good. They're just, they are regional leaders, they're just even better than me, right? And after they talk, They said, thank you for listening to me. I was like, yeah, you're welcome. So I like to see it as the container that we sometimes hold for people. The container that we just allow people to just download itself can be very healing, right? They actually don't need you to do a lot of things, right? And that's what, got to do with what we pay attention on. If we constantly pay attention on this, there's always problem to fix, right? Then we tend to have the habit to listen, to comprehend, just analyze or fix problem, all right? But if you tend to focus on the qualities, strengths, or sometimes the unmet needs, we start to listen for what is unspoken, all right? We start to listen for emotions. We start to listen for when this person is telling me what this person is needing. What is the unmet need here? All right, so in the case, as I listened to the leader that just now who challenged me, what should I tell you, right? The need for recognition, the need for validation, from the organization that he has worked in the company for so long, right? And the fact that when I heard that, just getting him to talk about what he enjoyed, what are some of his proud moments, just internally reinforce his own way of validating his own professional kind of career in the company. All right, so just listen for emotion and being more consistent with that, especially people where you feel that you have challenge with. The more we need to do this, because people who are challenged, in terms of relationship is where they are expressing something that is not very nice to our ear. But if you could turn around by just listening to them to understand what's the unspoken need from this person, maybe there is a chance to turn around this relationship. All right? Now, this is a bit small, but I could maybe read out to you. So I like this a lot. We need a pool. Yeah, he said, today was a difficult day. Say pool. Pool is the bear, okay? Now, there was a pause, and then Piglet said, do you want to talk about it? Say Piglet. No. Say Pooh after kind of a bit. I don't think so, right? I don't want to talk about it. Now, that's okay, say Piglet. And then he came and sat with his friend. Oh, thank you. Sat with Pooh. What are you doing? Asked Pooh. Nothing really, said Piglet. Only I know what difficult days are like. I quite often don't feel like talking about it on my difficult days either. That's what from Piglet, right? But goodness, continue Piglet. Difficult days are so much easier when you know you got someone there for you. And I'll always be here for you, Pooh. And as Pooh sat down, working through in his head his difficult day, while the solid, reliable Piglet sat next to him quietly, swinging his little legs, he thought that his best friend has never been more right. I felt touched when I read this because it shows a lot of how sometimes our compassionate presence can make an impact, right? So it goes beyond talking because your compassion is where you have it in your heart, right? And that is felt with you sitting with this person, right? So sometimes we do listen in this way, right? As a way to support, like what you said, as a way to uplift a person. And with this in mind, I'd like to kind of wrap up to say, we all have our difficult days, all right? And to be able to accept that others also have their difficult days. Your bosses have difficult days. Yeah, your colleagues have difficult days. So when they have difficult days, of course, they don't have the right to lash it at you, but just see that it's just one of their difficult days, all right? And we have different coping mechanisms. Some of us, are a little bit more resilient, and because we learn Dhamma, we are able to kind of take a step back, but not all have the privilege to learn the Dhamma, to cultivate the mind, all right? And I like to avoid using statements like, if I can do it, so can you. I was like, but it's so different. You have different conditions. Yeah, so sometimes we like to tell kids, right, if mommy can do it, so can you. Don't cry. If mommy can do it, so can you. But mommy and you is so different. We have different makeup, we have different stories, we have different emotions, right? So how you cope with difficulty is so different from how someone could have coped with that difficulty. So we talk about mutual respect to understand how best this person would like to cope with that difficulty. And that is where you really see the person. Not from what you think they should, but from where they think they want. right? So then you have a lot more alignment, a lot more being on the same level, being a lot more understanding that you bring it into that relationship. Loving someone is not the same as understanding someone. Does that make sense? Yes. Sometimes we feel that we need to do a lot for other people. But doing that doesn't mean that the person feels understood. Make sense? Yeah. So similarly, as a team leader, you may want to do a lot for your team, but maybe that's not what your team likes. Your team may feel that you don't understand us. Right? So that's quite profound for me because it talks a lot about loving and understanding is different. Right? Understanding is something that you need to really step in. Loving is from your perspective because that's how you express love. And that's how sometimes we serve our own ego as well. Right? We like to be helpful, but that's coming from us. But whether this helpfulness speaks to this person, land well in this person, is very different. Correct? Yeah, you're nodding your head, right? Yeah, you must have remembered something. Okay. Right, now. So this is from Thich Nhat Hanh, yeah, one of the, the late teacher. And she said, we all want to be understood. When we listen to someone with the intention of helping that person to suffer less, this is deep listening, all right? When we listen with compassion, we don't get caught up with judgment. I love this because it's to be able to listen in a way that lets the person feel that it's okay. I'm with you, all right? And I kind of accept who you are. Not that I've agreed, but I just accept that who you are. And you can feel free to express, the full of yourself in front of me, right? And to that, we are actually connecting with that person on a pain level. To be able to understand the pain of that person takes a lot of practice for us to understand our own pain. When we can understand our own pain, I feel, for me, it's easier to understand people's pain, right? And that is where we start to connect at a pain level. That, yes, it's not easy, yeah. That's what I experience it, in the whole coaching sessions with people, is to understand the pain that go through and to be able to say, yeah, we all been through that, and let's see how we can co-create ways to go forward, all right? Now, so I talk a lot the see and the listen, which is the hearing, right? The listening, seeing and listening. So a couple of applications we can bring into the workplace in how can we see differently, how can we see better, how can we listen deeper, all right? So in a team meeting agenda, what do you talk about in the beginning of the meeting? If you have, the power or the position to chair team meeting, what do you talk about? So instead of talking about all the work schedule, and of course there are meetings like that you have to do that, but if you have that luxury to have other types of meeting, then see whether you can get people to pay attention on other things. For example, one of my favorite questions is, let's talk about, just spend that next 15 minutes, before we get into the agendas is, we all have been very busy at work, so let's talk about what have we learned just from the last 1 month. One thing that you have learned that is important to you. One learning that speaks to you. We just get people to share, all right? And that is the learning that is under, behavior, all right? Or what is that one thing that, you feel that is, you're proud of for the last 1 month? Let's just start with that. Just getting people to talk about that so that people start to pay attention on different things, all right? Or check-in process, when we check in with people, can you ask different questions, right? Rather than the usual, what's the target? What have you done, like in terms of the work, right? So different things you can ask. My own experience here is there was a time where I had to change a culture of a company. The culture was very silo and there's a lot of blaming. People are not working together. But the company was kind of performing in that sense. And they usually give a lot of like a payout, at the end of the month. So I suggested to my boss, I said, why don't we change it to a way where we give vouchers. Instead of giving like that, we actually have like everybody gathered together in the office, and then when we give voucher, the salesman actually usually would be the one who clinch certain sales, right? And can we invite the salesperson to come forward to share who has helped you to clinch this target this month? And that became a question and became a different thing that they focused, that I'm successful not because of myself. I'm successful because the customer service department helped me. because, you know, the repair helped me, and I share that. And it's amazing. You just get people to pay attention on different things. You start to see people look forward for those sessions where, you know, the salespeople, initially a bit shy, they don't want to share because very paiseh, right? But after that, everybody like, okay, I want to share. And then you say, I want to thank so-and-so, I want to thank so-and-so because, you know, this happened and this person helped. The energy was so different, right? And that's how we help people to pay attention on other things, right? Not just about timeline or, you know, targets. Appraisal session as well. Sometimes we do have to talk about results, definitely, and that can be quite, you know, for people who are not performing, all right? And then you also have portion about the appraisal that you talk about development of that person. So if you feel that this person is not performing, then I would suggest you to split that conversation, to not talk about performance, and then after you tell people they are not performing, then you say, what's your aspiration? You will not get it. The energy is just so different, right? So to say, okay, now let's talk about this first, then maybe in another meeting we talk about, you know, your performance, right? So just having that frame to say, you know, how can we help people to connect more with themselves in terms of their strengths, in terms of their qualities, in terms of what they could bring, not just the work at the work level. Also in conflict resolution approaches, being able to bring people together to talk so that they see things on the same page. Because I see that sometimes we have a habit of copying people, right? There's a conflict, and then you copy this person, you copy that person. An email, sometimes you don't see the same thing, right? Just to give a call to say, hey, let's talk, we need to talk. Right? And then bringing people together in a team to just talk about what's the way of working together, right? How do we align? You know, when troubles happen, what can we do? So just conversation like that help people to see things on the same page. Okay? So these are more practical examples that we can use, you know, to just applying seeing and listening. Now, the last part, which is we talk about seeing, listening. The last part is speaking, all right? Now, this one, choose your words. We all know, right? We want to choose our words. Why? Because our words carry energy, right? True? Yes? Our words carry energy. And sometimes it may not be intentional, but our words does have the power to actually uplift people or bring people down. Right? And that's something that I'm very careful about sometimes in coaching when we use words like you always, you never. All these words just bring people to, you know, to a level of self-doubt, right? So being able to be intentional in some of the words that we use, yeah? So a couple of suggestions here that you can maybe consider that in speaking, all right, hold our views lightly, all right, versus the thought about being right. Because when you are being right, the energy is tense. Like, I'm going to prove something. So we actually push through conversation. But when we start to hold views lightly, we start to have this expansion. Well, okay, let's just talk. Let's just see how. And we allow things to unfold. We listen for the condition. We listen for what could be possible. So there's a lot more lightness in just exploring. And it gives people that sense of, I'm being heard by you. All right? So hold conversations to see more and listen more. But more important, I think, is also the mindset around checking in with our own assumptions. We all make certain assumptions at times. And just having that question, how can I be wrong in this situation? Is there something that I don't know? How can I ask questions that I can check in with my own assumption? Right? And co-create possibility with people. Right? I'm not too sure, but let's just talk and see what could emerge. All right? So that's one. The other one is to have a mindset or practice of inquire versus tell, right? So just having that curiosity about things. Tell me more. When you said you disagree, right? I wonder where that comes from. I want to understand a little bit more. Where do you get that thought? All right? What's holding you back? All right? So I talk about where does this thought come from. How do you feel about that? Because I noticed in the meeting there was this thing that you said. Yeah, how do you feel about that? All right? And what's really important for you in this situation? So your colleague may come to you to complain about certain things and then give you all the drama, and then you pause and say, Okay, so I heard this, but let me ask you what's important for you. And then you will see the person like, yeah, I never thought about that. Because our mind is just in that coping, trying to find solution. But when you ask people what's important for them, it just connect them back to who they are. You know, here they say, oh, okay, what's important, what's my priority is sis, all right? And actually, what do you need from me? Or what support do you need, right? How can I help you, right? So I like to use a bit more the mindset about ask more, yeah? Draw out more versus having to put in more, right? So when you have that mindset of drawing out more, you will see that it actually level up in terms of, you know, understanding versus having to keep pushing, all right? So that's another one I find very useful for myself, even at home as well. When you notice someone is disagreeing with you, instead of trying to push our thought, maybe we hold back. You know, what makes you think so? Where do you get that from? Where do you learn that from? Okay? Now, the other one is also having a mindset to clarify. Clarify versus conclude. All right? Sometimes conclude means we have already concluded that you are like that, and this cannot be done, right? But clarifying has an element of really stepping in. So what I'm hearing is when you said this, yeah, am I right? Yeah, so you're just clarifying, all right? Or what do you mean when you say good? What do you mean when you say not good? Because good and not good is very subjective, all right? You always have a perspective, you know, attached, right? So I'm curious to hear where this good or not good comes from your perspective, all right? So, yeah, and even sometimes I'm afraid to do this. So what are you afraid of, right? And then we explore what are some of your fear. You know, where does that come from, right? So that become a conversation just about stepping in, understanding the person. Rather than immediately we instruct to say, you don't have to be fearful, you know, I am there for you, you know, I will support you. But that is your way. That may not be the person's way, okay? So just stepping in to really understand. That works a lot in just conflict situation, you notice, all right? Now, there are also times where you have to share feedback. I understand in the corporate setting. How do we have a bit more understanding when we share feedback? So I'd like to maybe just share one mindset shift that we can use when we share feedback, where feedback sounds scary, but feedback is also an opportunity for us to share information and an invitation to dialogue in order to reinforce or change behavior. So I use the word dialogue, means you are facilitating a dialogue. You are not passing a judgment, or you're not passing just a rating for this person. So the mindset is about inviting people to dialogue with you, right? To say what's going on, you know, where you see this behavior, where that could be changed. And traditionally, we like to see whether it's a positive feedback and negative feedback, all right? Now, the word negative just make people feel so fearful, right? You're going to give me a negative feedback, all right? So instead of having that way of thinking, I reframe it to say, what is it that we can change? What is it that I want to reinforce? Right? And that is where we, you know, when we talk to people, it's not about negative or positive. It's about what is the situation, what is the job scope like, what can have to change, what needs to be reinforced. In order for us to do that, we also must have this practice and this behavior of being balanced. Right? Balanced feedback is also catching people doing the right thing. If I tell you, you know, hit the sales target because you have not been hitting, versus, hey, last month, I saw you being very organized in the way you did your sales call. I just want to let you know and keep doing that. Which one lands better for you? The later one, right? Is to be able to see that people are making effort. Is to be able to see that the incremental effort that people make in the journey of becoming better. And therefore, it takes us as leaders or even as colleagues, right, to actually sometimes be a bit more intentional to catch people doing the right thing. Because our mind would literally catch people doing the wrong thing. Because we are always, you know, very critical about ourselves. Right? That's why I said the lens we use on ourselves. Like for me, right, I can be quite critical and sometimes, you know, very judgmental about myself, right? And I sometimes can bring that to others. So just having an awareness that actually you catch yourself doing the right thing is also practicing us to catch people doing the right thing as well. And we are not saying to be positive or negative, it's about being balanced, right? Because if you have spent 30 minutes talking about what needs to be changed, make sure we also spend 30 minutes talk about what is good. Then the walkout feeling is you are fair. You actually pay attention on both. Rather than sometimes we tend to spend 1 hour talking about what needs to be fixed, right? And then that good job, right? And then we spend, 1 hour talking about what needs to be fixed, right? And that goes for everybody in the family as well, right? Our kids, our spouse, that the journey is more important than the outcome. That's why you're celebrating the journey of becoming versus only celebrate when they hit the outcome. Yeah, and that has got to do with changing the way we look at people, okay? Now, so this is the last slide, yeah? Very good, on time. So, you notice that I use the word 1, 2, 3, right? And this is something that I've learned as well, that we need to see, we need to hear before we speak. So this speaking, the seeing, listening, and speaking has an order. Because if you speak without see or listen, that's where relationship starts to get into a lot of conflict. But if we could just slow down and see and hear before we speak, yeah, I personally feel it can transform relationship. Right? So there's an order on that. Yeah, and we cannot skip. And sometimes when you speak and then you realize the person is not getting you, right? Then we need to repeat the cycle again. We need to see first. Don't continue to speak because it's not going to work. You're going to maybe pause and say, okay, let's go back to see. Let's go back to hear, right? The listening. And then see whether that changes the way we speak. All right? So that's something that I like to kind of conclude. But more importantly in our practice is, the kusala and the akusala, right? Just being mindful of how we are cultivating our mind states, right? The wholesome states, which is the kusala. That is, a lot of time, I would see the soil that guides us in the see, the hear, and the speak. Because sometimes you could say the same word. Two persons can say the same word, but it lands differently. Because the mind state is different. I can say this, why? But you say, why? One state is about curiosity. One state is angry. Yeah? And it could be the same word, why, but it lands differently. So I'm going to bring it back to the importance of just noticing our mind states, as you hold conversations with people, as you go into meetings, right? Because the mind state is where it has a lot of energy, right? Wholesome or unwholesome, all right? And when you bring it more, the wholesomeness, I would like to feel that and think that it has a lot more effective impact, yeah, than when we kind of bring in a little bit more the unwholesome part, right? So, and thank you so much for just being here, and I just want to just share that the work that I do is a very privileged work that I do as a coach or as a facilitator, and I'm able to bring a lot of what the Dhamma has taught me into the work that I do. And I'm not after changing the world, right? And this is something that I always remind myself, that I'm changing myself. Because once I can change my mind states, right, I have influence on other people, right? So I like to say that actually the way we cultivate my mind is when my mind is a lot more cultivated, actually I am allowing other people to suffer less, right? Just by working on my mind states. That's how I feel is so precious and important for me to constantly work on my mind states, right? So with that, thank you so much, right? Thank you. And I would have questions, yeah? Yes. Questions, because we have about 15 minutes for questions.
Yeah. Anyone with questions? Raise your hand. Okay.
Okay, thank you, Sister, for the talk. Actually, I would like to understand more on the word understanding. Because sometimes when you say, yes, I know you, I understand your situation, But what happens if it's something that we have not gone through, and we just by words that we understand you, it may not be that genuine. Yeah.
So I would not use the word understand, like in this case, right? So what you're saying, if you don't have the experience, yeah, and you really not so quite understand at times, right? So just don't use the word understand, right? And what I usually would do is just to listen, right? To just listen and then ask a few questions, right? So that helps a person to help me understand more, because I don't understand, right? So I need to ask some questions so that I can understand. But I also learned that, let's just say grief, for example. How you experience grief and versus how someone's experience grief is very different. Although it's the same word, grief, it will never be the same. It will never be the same. So therefore, what I'm also saying here is that thought about I fully understand, that actually has a disclaimer. We don't really understand because everybody has different conditions and different struggle. Yeah. So sometimes I just say, yeah, what is it that I can help? Is there something that you'd like me to do for you? And if the person say, no, I just need some time to cool off, whatever, then I say, okay. So I like to use, like, what do you need from me? All right? And is there something that I can support in this situation? Right? Yeah, then that would elevate the need to use the word, like, I understand you. Does that help? Yeah? Mm. Yeah, but some people also tell me the word empathize has different meaning. So, well, you can try like I empathize with you. Yeah. So it's just words. Yeah, but also check back into your intent. What's the intent of us saying that word? Right. So if you kind of go into what's the intent of saying that word to that person. Yeah.
What would you advise actually if a workplace doesn't have much understanding that they, colleagues, between colleagues? Yeah.
Sometimes I would say, I notice that there isn't kind of a shared understanding here in this department and that department. So what do you think we can do? I'm just noticing this. What do you notice? Yeah, and just get them to share. Right, that if sometimes the two departments complain or whatever, right, then you can clarify to say, I see this and I hear this. What could help us? Right, what do you think we can do to have a bit more open understanding or shared understanding in this situation? And then hear from others what, they can do. So that is one leader where there is a big initiative she needs to launch. And then she did a kickoff call. Then she realized that people are very quiet and people are not asking a lot of questions, but she sensed that people are not buying. They're not buying into the initiative. So she asked me, what can I do? So I didn't tell her what to do, but I asked her, what are you noticing about the group? And from your previous experience with this group, what would be their potential challenge? And then she shared that. And then she realized that actually they may not have understood the whole initiative well. So I asked her, what do you think you could do? And she said, yeah, maybe the next meeting I will not share my slides. I will just get them to share, what is it about this initiative that you don't know, that you want to ask? And then after that, I asked her, how was the conversation? It was said, very good. Because it was a conversation about creating shared meaning, shared understanding in the group, using a process of just asking questions, allowing people to speak, right? Just seeing and listening. So she stopped speaking. She go back to see and listen. Yeah. Okay.
Any other questions? Please raise your hand.
Any other questions? Managed to get some answers for your question? Yes. Yeah? What would you try?
Thanks. I think the takeaway, takeaway for me is about having the, I'm not sure if I can say it that way, so initiatives to understand people that people might come from different points, and also from myself.
Right.
And maybe we can try to discuss what we are actually focusing on when we have conflicts.
Yes.
Are we focusing on the wrong place that causes we misaligned and
Correct.
I get the wrong place?
Very good.
Yeah.
Good. So I think that will be a conversation to bring people, what are we all after? What our common goal here? Setting a bit of a common goal, common aspiration, or common direction. Once we have that, then we can hear the different perspective. Yeah, very good. Yeah. And that's helpful for people to tell you how they see the project or how they see the initiative, right? Just getting them to share that. Good. And then, sister, just now you're asking about how transparent or how honest. Do you get some answers for that?
Yeah, I think you should just, and then you can only give so much, right? Like you just be try to listen and understand.
Right, right.
It's not reciprocated, then
Yeah, just move on. Yeah, we're not trying to change everyone. Yeah, because we also sometimes have to be realistic that it takes time for people to kind of sometimes change if that's something that we are after. But also to ask ourselves, is this the best that brings us the best in me? Is this situation, the environment that bring out the best in me? And then how can I kind of look at the conditions, that surrounds that situation, right? Yeah. Good. But I also realize that sometimes when we are a bit more honest with ourselves, we can be a bit more honest with other people. That means we have accept rejection. We accept that there are people who can think different from us. It's like when I say something, I'm not after full agreement, right? I can accept that there were people who will reject the idea. So if I can work on that, right, then when people say, no, I don't agree, I don't have to fight. Because I'm already prepared that it's just my idea. There will be people who will disagree. So I'm not after agreement. And when I don't have that attachment of agreement, then it's easier for me to accept people who reject. Yeah? And therefore, it helps me to kind of have the more co-creation kind of mindset. Right? That, okay, you disagree, let me know why, what's going on. I tend to kind of ask a bit more of that. And then let's see, as we talk, we can co-create something that we have not seen, but maybe as we talk, we can sharpen the idea, we can kind of refine it so that we are moving on to something that could be a win-win, or something that, we could see that we could actually all have a stake in that, right? So, but that comes with a mindset of not having to be right or having people to always agree with us, right? Good. Very good question. Any others? Yes, I think people are hungry already. We can eat. So, yeah, thank you so much, everyone, brothers and sisters. Thank you.